This book is so intense, the author unalived herself after writing it. In Sylvia Plath's one and only novel, The Bell Jar, we unravel the fine line between despair and ambition through the life of a young girl called Esther, who suffers from a depressive roller coaster of emotions. So, fasten your seatbelts and let's enjoy the ride. As always, darlings, this is not a summary of the book because many people have done that. ChatGPT can do it. But I just want to give some insights and a psychological analysis as someone who's studying it about the character. What I aim is to give some psychological insights to better your life through the characters. Whenever I'm reading, I'm just like, ooh, this character does this, that, the other. Why do they do it? And also, please don't take this video with a grain of salt, but rather with 24,000 million grains of salt. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend this book is easy to read and understand. It is not. It would be a lie for me to tell you that I understood it perfectly the first time I read it. Because it fried my brain, let's be honest. I couldn't grasp almost anything, so I had to do some research, and a lot of research. I gone through different studies and different essays that have actually enriched my insights. So I also encourage you this whenever you're reading to get some insights of other people. The easy part of the book is to understand that this novel is a really clear reflection of how the author felt. And well, without further ado, let's just get into the story. Well, no, that was a lie. First, I'm gonna talk about the author. I must confess that I'm 100% biased towards the author because she's one of my favorite authors, and not because of the novel. It is not amongst my favorites, I'm gonna be honest. It is too depressing for me, like for my taste. I know that it's a masterpiece, but it's too depressive for me. But I've read her journals and some of her poetry, and I just think it's so raw and honest and a clear reflection of what a woman was going through at that era. And as someone with a high curiosity in understanding people's minds, I just find her art perfect because it's like everything she puts out in the world are pieces of the puzzle of her mind. And it's, wow, really amazing to just try to grasp some information about her. Her honesty is just so highly entertaining and even relatable. And with all that said, let's get into the story, The Bell Jar. What the hell does a bell jar mean? Well, the protagonist feels suffocated and trapped inside a bubble called the bell jar. Esther doesn't alienate herself by blocking any social interaction, but rather by placing a wall in between her and the rest of the people. And we could discuss whether the wall was placed by her, well, the bell jar was placed by her or by society, but I don't think this is black or white. I'm not gonna lie, throughout the novel, it feels like the character is victimizing herself a bit. It feels like she's watching a movie and her life just passing by, and it happens that, I just got hurt because that person hurt me and I had no agency towards that. Yeah. Which is not true. Like, you have some agency in your life, at least the way you see it. If you ask me, I would say that she's feeling like a puppet of society, ever chasing an unattainable and also paradoxical ideal of womanhood and propriety that she cannot attain because it's impossible. Anyway, and we see how the bell jar inflicts in her mental health and crumbles her emotional stability. But she has to keep quiet because being known as the girl with mental issues was a direct demonization of someone's reputation. We can see how suffocating the bell jar is when Esther starts seeking freedom through death. I'm gonna get a bit, psychological here. Us humans, we seek freedom through a change of environment, and most often than not. Like, just imagine, just whenever you felt stuck in high school, you just pictured yourself out of the school environment, isn't it? Like, oh, I will finally be able to go to college and be free, which is not true. It's a complete lie. But you had hope, the hope of changing your environment that could free you from the chains of your life. However, the protagonist doesn't find herself into, I don't know, moving to another state, but rather in unaliving herself. Not because she perceives death as an end, but rather as a rebirth. Because if she purposely ends her life, the gates of repression will get open and she will be able to be whoever she wants to be without the societal pressures. For her, depriving herself from living, it was a great option because she was already dead in the bell jar. She couldn't be who she truly wanted to be. She was depleted of oxygen. And the bell jar is also a metaphor of the social confinement that limited her growth as a woman. Suffocated by sexual hypocrisy and paradoxical expectations on how she should act, Esther enters into a rabbit hole because she feels stuck and boxed. And that's a clear reflection of how Sylvia felt, because in her journal she wrote a famous quote that she was just too limited for life, stating that there was no way she could shoot all the arrows that she wanted to shoot in life. Because there's a metaphor that the mother of her ex-boyfriend, Esther's ex-boyfriend, tells Esther, and the metaphor is men are the ones who shoot arrows, so they do things in life, and women are the place where the men shoot, so they are the carrying safety part so that the men can shoot. And she's like, no, I want to shoot not one arrow, I want to shoot like 1,000 million different arrows. And I understand her, not from the point of like sexism, but from the point of I want to do many things in my life, I don't want to be deprived of doing many things. But time's linear, so she doesn't have enough time or resources to actually do everything that she wants to do. And that's why the bell jar is also inflicting such pressure towards her. I love the metaphor of the bell jar. Like the author, Sylvia, is afraid that she won't be able to read all the books that she wants to, which is extremely relatable. And she will not be able to live all the life she wants to. She's desperate to learn. She only wants to explore the world. And that's beautiful. And Sylvia wants to feel it all in life, but she cannot. She's constrained. I believe this is a quote and a metaphor that really touches many people, because it's not about this only about the sexism. It's not only about our time on earth being like really short. It's about everything in life. It's basic human experience, and how our fear of making a bad decision leads us to the worst decision, indecision. If you think about Sylvia Plath, you think about figs. As Sylvia, Esther wants to be everything. On the one hand, she wants to fit in and be a woman of the era, a housewife. Just because she fears not to be loved if she pursues a career in literature, which is what she wants to do. However, she's also haunted by these ideas since her ex-boyfriend told her that she would lose interest in writing and her career and ambitions when she had a child and a house to take care of. And on the other hand, she also wants to pursue a career in writing, which is what fulfills her and what is most aligned with her curiosity in life. Yet again, she's tortured by the fear of not being loved and never being good enough. But when she pictures her future self as an ambitious woman, she also thinks like, oh God, I'm not gonna be loved because people will not love me, because I will not, well, men will not love me because I will not be a good wife and a good woman. And I also, like, who says that I'm good enough? So she starts self-sabotaging so hard. And I believe like everyone can relate to some extent of with self-sabotage. And seeing someone else hyperbolizing this is hilarious, because you truly realize how you also do it to some other extent. Like, she's sitting in a crotch of a fig tree and she's looking at the figs being all the options she has in life. She finds herself in what we would call nowadays paralysis by analysis. In her head, she just has too many what ifs and she doesn't have an answer to any. And as she overthinks and meditates her decision and meditates and remeditates and thinks again, the figs start to get rotten, so they fall off the tree dead. And so the tree has decided for herself. There are no options left. This is a great teaching for everyone. Any option is better than no option. This is curious because I'm gonna talk about myself right now. And I used to think that I would be the literal opposite of Sylvia. So she doesn't choose any because she is thinking. And I had always pictured myself as this person who would have like tried out every single fig in the tree and would have ended stuffed and with a tummy ache. But if you look at it objectively, you're also not enjoying any other options. At 180 becomes a 360. This is a great analogy on how our human brain works when we have the illusion that we have to choose from many options. Or even if it's not an illusion, sometimes we do have an option overload and we don't know what to pick. Since it's normal for us to feel as if one bad choice would break and demolish our lives, we don't know what's the best option. And this, my darlings, is a cognitive bias called loss aversion. It's more emotionally charging for you to lose $5 than to gain $5. And it is because you can always live and thrive with more, but you cannot always live with less. And that's just so wired in our brains. And that's why Esther gets so paralyzed, because she doesn't know what to choose. And the fear doesn't come from, what if I don't get to live this life, but rather as, what would I lose if I chose this fig instead of that? Who the hell is Esther Greenwood? Because there's a lack in individuality and personality in the character that is so strong that you can see it from a mile away. Like, since the very first page, you're like, this girl has some personality issues. She validates her personality and how correct are her thoughts by others. It's really cute. Because at first, the protagonist finds a lot of comfort in Doreen, one of her colleagues in the magazine. As soon as she sees cracks in her personality, Esther's like, oh my god, no, this girl's terrible, and starts sort of demonizing her. Friends, which is not good if you want to maintain good friendships. It gets to a point where we see Esther not fully trusting and respecting Doreen anymore, just because she's more, flirtatious, and, well, her personality differs from Esther's. And it's, I mean, it's normal, it's not her. But Esther feels as, she's my friend, I see myself in her, therefore she must act like me. And she finds herself repeating this cycle over and over again with many female characters of the novel. Arguably because Esther is looking for traits and qualities that she looks for or fears in herself. Well, it is an act of desperation because she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know how to act in a way that people will like her. She seeks a lot of extrinsic validation. That's why she sees herself in others, because she sees that if someone else is doing something and they fit in, it must be because it's good. Therefore, if she also does it, she'll become good. And she won't, because her mind will be a mess, and she will not only feel disturbed, but she will not know who she is. You don't find yourself by copying others. Of course, there's a part of you that finds yourself through interacting with others, but also you have to be introspective and, find intrinsic validation. She doesn't. There's a big misalignment in that. She wants to be like Doreen and people who seem to fit in society. So she tries to emulate them by buying expensive clothes, partying like them, and just copying their lifestyle in general. But this only sends her into madness. Like, literally. Because she's unfulfilled. She doesn't find happiness and fulfillment from the same sources that most people find happiness and fulfillment, which is also very relatable. She's a teenager. Well, yeah, she's 19. So Esther has, the existential crisis of not knowing who you are. So she starts to emulating people around her who she deems as desirable. And she's even more dissatisfied with herself when she copies the others. So, in an act of rebellion and purification, she starts vomiting, taking baths, and even throwing the clothes over the window of a hotel in New York, because why not? She's dramatic AF, and I love her for that, because it brings some drama that keeps you reading, which leads us to her declining mental health. Our protagonist enters a very severe depressive spiral. She delusionally belittles herself over and over again. It's not an objective truth. She's not that dumb, that ugly, that unfitting, but she believes it to be. She's constantly punishing herself and depriving herself from eating, sleeping, and having basic human necessity. It even gets to a point where she views the electroshocks she receives from medical professionals as a form of punishment. What has she done wrong to deserve that? She self-sabotages herself into not taking care of herself. So, therefore, she accentuates the distance between her and the physical beauty she desperately wants to meet. Also, it is really worth mentioning that the second she starts reading about psychology and mental health is when she starts to have, more desires to act upon her wishes to herself, which is something we humans have. Like, for instance, the more we see those shoes on the internet, the more we want to buy them. The more we see, I don't know, a commercial about a movie, the more we want to watch it. Funny enough, Esther seems to reject and neglect any sort of professional help until she sees how her depression has lowered her productivity. Does it ring a bell? Because to me, it's very relatable. Like, how many of us don't get help of any kind, physical, mental, whatever, until we realize that our productivity towards our job or work or whatever has been highly diminished? Guilty. I love to see this story as a showcase of the standards and expectations a girl in the 50s had to meet. How living through a glass only deprives Esther of oxygen and a will to live. She claims she wanted to feel everything in life, yet paradoxically, she limited and shielded herself from many emotions and experiences by staying in the bell jar. We don't know whether she could have freed herself from the bell jar or society was inflicting too much pressure. But I couldn't help but wonder, what could have happened to Sylvia's life if one thing had been different? Would she still be alive today? What if she could have somehow freed herself from the standards and become the woman that she wanted to be, free from all the chains of societal pressure and her mental health? I'm just like having too many questions, but I believe that these too many questions come back to the fig tree analogy. So yeah, it's a full circle moment. Guys, the story ends with an opened ending. We don't know what happens to Esther. She's free from the hospital, but do you think Esther finds a way to achieve her goals by being a free woman and an imperfect one, by accepting her existence as it is? Or what do you think? I really want to know, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice day, week, and month. A little reminder, don't limit yourself, because life limits you enough. Mwah! Bye.